Talk about Jesus for 2 hours.
I wouldn't change it for the world. Like,
Jesus, that's good.
seen so many people.
Betrayed is what the whole world felt when Shaunie Henderson sat down and wrote the truth about her life with Shaquille O'Neal. Not the truth from a tabloid, not a rumor passed around online. The truth from the woman who lived inside the marriage, the woman who built a family with the most famous big man on the planet. And what she said hit harder than anything a reporter could have written. She said she did not know if she was ever really in love with him. That one sentence, that one quiet, painful sentence, it changed the way people looked at everything. The family photos, the red carpet moments, the kids, the house. The whole story got rewritten in one breath. Because when a woman who spent years beside a man says she is not sure she ever loved him the way love is supposed to feel, that is not just a divorce story anymore. That is something deeper. That is a woman telling the world she gave her best years to an image that was never fully real. She gave him her loyalty. She raised his children. She stood beside him in front of cameras and crowds. And in the end, she looked back and had to ask herself whether any of it had been built on something true. If this story is hitting you the same way it hit the internet, use the hype feature right now and give this video some hype. Because this is exactly the kind of story that gets buried when people do not pay attention. Now, before we go any further into what Shaunie revealed, we need to go back. We need to understand who Shaquille O'Neal was before any of this happened. Because the fall means nothing if you do not first understand how high he was standing. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Shaquille O'Neal was not just a basketball player. He was a force. He was a 7-foot wall of power that NBA defenses had no real answer for. He had already won a championship before he ever put on a Lakers jersey, but it was with the Los Angeles Lakers that he became something close to a myth. He helped lead that team to 3 straight championships, 3 in a row. Back to back to back, the kind of run that only a few players in the history of the sport have ever pulled off. He was named Finals MVP each time. He broke backboards, literally. The man was so strong that the equipment could not handle him. He turned the act of dunking into something that looked like punishment. Centers around the league braced themselves when Shaq came their way. Some tried to hold him. Some tried to grab him. None of it worked. There are stories of other big men like Chris Dudley and Vlade Divac being moved around by Shaq like he was rearranging furniture. He talked trash on the court. He humiliated people. He was a bully in the best possible basketball sense of the word. He was the biggest dog on the floor every single night. Off the court, he was everywhere. Movies, music, commercials. He had a smile that could fill a stadium and a laugh that made everyone around him feel like they were in on the joke. He called himself Superman. He wore the cape, and for a while the whole world believed it. But here's where the story starts to turn. Because the same thing that made Shaq unstoppable on a basketball court started to shape how he moved through the rest of his life. When no one can stop you, you start to believe no one should. When every room bends around you, you start to expect it. The dominance was not just a skill. It became a personality, and personalities like that do not stay on the court. They come home. That is where Shaunie comes in. Shaunie Nelson was not a basketball fan chasing a famous athlete. She was a young woman building her own life. She had a child already. She was working in film marketing at 20th Century Fox. She was 1999 when she and Shaq crossed paths in Los Angeles. He was at the top of his game. She was not easily impressed. He pursued her anyway. He kept coming. He used charm and persistence until she gave him a real chance. They had their first 2 children together in 2000 and 2001. Then in December 2002, they got married in a secret ceremony. They kept it private, no big public announcement, just a quiet commitment between 2 people who had already built a life together. Over time, their household grew. Between biological children and children from earlier relationships, they raised 6 kids. From the outside, it looked powerful. It looked like the kind of family you put on a magazine cover. A global superstar and his smart, beautiful partner, surrounded by their children in their massive home. But the outside and the inside of that house were 2 very different places. The cracks were there, the stress was building, and fans had no idea, because the image was so strong. Shaq and Shaunie looked like they had everything. What the cameras never showed was what was happening behind closed doors. The betrayal, the lies, the slow, painful erosion of trust. The moment that broke everything open happened at a school play. Of all places, a normal family evening. Shaunie and Shaq both had BlackBerry phones at the time. The devices looked almost identical. In the rush of getting the kids settled and watching the performance, Shaunie picked up the wrong phone. She did not realize it until the phone started buzzing, and buzzing, and buzzing again. She looked down and saw messages coming in from multiple women. Not one, multiple. Explicit messages, romantic messages, messages that made it very clear that the man she had been building her life with had been carrying on with other women. Not just one time, but as a pattern. Think about what that moment was like. You are at your child's school play. You're supposed to be watching something sweet and innocent, and instead, you're holding proof that your husband has been cheating on you, probably for a long time. That is the kind of shock that does not go away. That kind of discovery does not just make you angry, it makes you question everything. Every trip he took, every late night, every phone call. The whole timeline of the marriage suddenly looks different. Shaunie did not stay quiet. She found Shaq's vehicle in a parking garage at an arena. She slashed all 4 tires, she shattered windows. Then she used a knife to carve the words, "I cheat on my wife," into the hood of the car and along the side. And she did not stop there. She made him drive that damaged vehicle on flat tires through public streets, while she drove right alongside him and honked her horn to draw attention to what was written on the car. That is not the action of a woman who got a little upset. That is the action of a woman who had been pushed past a breaking point, who had carried something for too long, who needed the humiliation to be visible because the betrayal had been kept hidden for so long. It should be said clearly, property damage is not something to celebrate. But the real story here is not the car. The real story is what drove her to that moment. And the research makes clear that Shaq's behavior gave her more than enough reason to feel destroyed. Because the BlackBerry moment was not the only time the infidelity became public. In 2009, reported messages between Shaq and Laura Govan were exposed. Govan was connected to NBA player Gilbert Arenas at the time. Then, in November 2008, the Miami New Times reportedly published communications that alleged Shaq had reached out to a Newsweek writer named Allison Samuels and asked her to help him connect with several high-profile women. The names mentioned in the research include model Cecily Lopez, actress Sharon Leal, and singer Rihanna. These are alleged details from media reports, not proven legal facts, but they became part of the public record. And then there's the detail that cuts the deepest. According to the research, unidentified women reportedly came to the family home. Not just messages on a phone, not just leaked emails. Women at the house where the children lived, the house where Shaunie was raising her family. That turned their home, the place that was supposed to be safe, into a place of ongoing shame and pain. The infidelity was not one mistake. It was a system. It was repeated. It was spread across years. And it eventually became impossible to hide from the public, from the family, and from the marriage itself. In September 2007, Shaq filed for divorce, citing a marriage that was irretrievably broken. They briefly got back together after that. But in 2009, Shaunie filed for legal separation. The divorce became final in 2011. The family that looked so powerful from the outside had quietly collapsed from the inside. Not all at once, but over years of damage done by choices Shaq later admitted he had no excuse for. Now fast forward to May 2024. Shaunie, who is now Shaunie Henderson after marrying Pastor Keon Henderson in 2022, published her memoir. The book is called Undefeated: Changing the Rules and Winning on My Own Terms. It is 224 pages. And the part that shook the internet was a single admission about her emotional truth. She wrote that looking back, she did not know if she was ever really in love with the man. But she was in love with the idea of being married to the man she had a family with. Read that slowly. She was not saying the years were fake. She was not saying the children did not matter. She was saying something more painful. She was saying she may have fallen in love with a version of a life, with stability, with family, with the image of partnership, not with the actual man at the center of it. She later clarified that people misunderstood her words and that she did feel deep affection for Shaq, but the distinction she drew was still sharp. The full feeling of being in love, the kind she said she only truly understood when she married Pastor Keon, was something she was not sure she ever had with Shaq. That reframing hit the public hard, because it made the whole marriage look different. It made it look less like a love story that failed, and more like a woman who held a family together while loving the idea of what the man could be, only to find that the reality of the man was something else entirely. Shaq responded publicly. He posted a statement on Instagram. He wrote that he understood he would not have been in love with himself either. He wished Shaunie all the best. He signed it with "All love, Shaq." His caption said, "Simply, trust me, I get it." People gave him credit for that, and he did deserve some. He did not attack her. He did not call her a liar. He did not try to spin the story. He accepted the pain he had caused, and he said so in public. That takes something, but here's the other side of that accountability. When a man publicly says he understands why his ex-wife was not in love with him, he is also confirming that he was the kind of man who could not be loved fully. He is confirming that he created an environment where a woman who gave him years, children, and loyalty walked away not even sure she ever felt what love was supposed to feel like with him. The accountability is real, but so is the admission inside it. To understand how Shaq became that man, you have to go back to the court one more time. Because the same ego that made him a legend also made him dangerous in the wrong settings. Shaq was a bully on the hardwood. That word is not used as a criticism of his game. It is used to describe his style. He dominated through force. He did not finesse his way past defenders. He walked through them. He talked down to them. He made other players feel small. That energy built 4 championships. It also built a man who was used to getting his way, who was used to the world bending around him, who was used to being the biggest thing in the room. Kobe Bryant, his famously difficult teammate, criticized Shaq's lack of discipline over the years. The message was consistent. Shaq could be greater than he was if he worked harder and held himself to a higher standard. And Shaq resisted that. He had the talent to coast in ways other people could not. He was so dominant that he could win without being his best, and he seemed to apply that same logic off the court. He could cheat repeatedly and still be Shaq. He could be absent and still be the main character of his own story. The point is not that a man who dominates on the court will cheat at home. That is not the argument. The argument is that the ego required to dominate the way Shaq dominated was never checked. Nobody stopped him on the basketball floor. Nobody truly held him accountable in his personal life until the consequences caught up with him. And by then, the damage was already done. After the separation, Shaq went home. He went home to a 76,000 square foot mansion. That is not a typo. 76,000 square feet. A building so large that most people would never see the whole thing in a single walkthrough. And it was quiet. Shaq has talked about how empty that house felt after everything fell apart. He came home to a lot of space and very little warmth. His children refused to speak to him for a period of time after the divorce. The very people he had been building that life with went silent on him. That silence was not handed down by a judge. It was not delivered by a reporter. It came from his kids. It came from inside his own family. And that is a punishment that no amount of money or fame or championships can protect you from. Shaq has spoken about what that period did to him. He says he returned to that empty mansion and felt the full weight of his mistakes. He has told his sons in his own words not to repeat what he did. He said Papa was a rolling stone. You don't need to be like me. He worked to repair those relationships over time. He put in the effort to become the kind of father his children could speak to again. That work is real. That growth deserves acknowledgement. Today, Shaq and Shaunie maintain a co-parenting relationship built on structure and clear boundaries. They support each other from a distance. They keep their personal lives separate. Shaunie has moved forward into a new chapter of her life and has publicly called herself the happiest she has ever been. Shaq has remained single. He has said in interviews that he is afraid of repeating the past. He is afraid of failing again at the responsibilities he now talks about openly: to protect, to provide, and to love. That fear is probably the most honest thing he has ever said about himself. It is honesty that came too late to save a marriage, but early enough to save his bond with his children. And maybe, if he holds on to it, to save himself from becoming the emptiest version of the most famous man in any room. So here is where we land. Shaquille O'Neal is one of the greatest basketball players who ever lived. That is not in question. 4 championships, Hall of Fame, global icon, business empire, all of it is real. The man built something massive, and in recent years he has shown a willingness to own the damage he caused. He did not fight Shaunie's memoir, he accepted it, and that matters. But the warning inside this story is still loud. A man can conquer an entire sport. He can build an empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He can make the whole world laugh. He can be Superman in every arena he walks into, and still come home to silence. Still watch the people he was supposed to love most pull away from him. Still sit in a mansion so large it echoes. Shaunie Henderson's memoir did not destroy Shaquille O'Neal. He cannot be destroyed, but it did something more lasting. It made people stop and ask, what does it cost to be loved by someone who is never truly checked? What does it cost to be the family behind the cape? A 7-foot king, a house the size of a stadium, and the kind of quiet that no trophy can fill. That is the real story behind the Superman smile.